There are plenty of UX techniques that don't need sign-off from your boss or your company at all. All you need is a little bit of time and a bit of know-how. So let's dive in and have a look. Heuristic reviews, or put more simply, site reviews, are a structured appraisal of your website using a set of predefined benchmarks known as heuristics. There are plenty of sets of site heuristics found on the web by just searching UX heuristics. So let's go over some of the most standard ones that you can get started with. I've also included these heuristics in the lesson material beneath the video to help you. Firstly, ask yourself if your site is made for humans. Does it adhere to the user's mental models, and does it behave the way that they would expect? Does the site help you avoid errors? If you encounter an error, does the site do enough to help you to recover from them? Next, is it accessible? Is it legible? Does the site work when JavaScript is turned off? And is it suitable for people who might be colorblind? Next, ask yourself whether the site is self-evident. By this, I mean, is the purpose of the site clear? Is the branding and the messaging appropriate and simple? Is it predictable? Does it use known web conventions? Are there good defaults for user input? And does the site remember your preferences? Next, is it efficient? Is the site responsive? Does it prioritize the most important tasks? And lastly, is it trustworthy? Is its content up to date? Are there any bugs, or does the site look like it's keeping its promises? Now there's quite a lot to remember there, so just remember that beneath this video you can download the lesson material if you need to come back to it. A thorough competitive analysis can sometimes take 1 to 2 days, and it's a logical next step after you've reviewed your own website. You can use the same set of heuristics before and simply conduct the same review on your competitors. You can also extend this analysis to well-designed sites that aren't direct competitors to act as aspirational benchmarks. A great tip to help you visualize how you compare against your competitors is by documenting this data and using radar plots. Let me show you an example. Okay, remember some of our heuristics from a moment ago. You can see them plotted on this graph along with a score of 1 to 5. As I review my own website and my competitors, I can start to plot how trustworthy or efficient I think the site is out of 5 and plot the score. I can map different sites in different colors and overlay them on top of each other like this. I can then get a more visual indication of where my site might be failing and where I need to improve. After you've completed your competitor analysis, your next step should be to analyze your site data. Your first task, of course, is to find out whether your site actually has any analytics hooked up. If you don't, there are plenty of entry-level tools to get you going, like Google Analytics and Mint, and they require just a tiny snippet of JavaScript code on your website. Once you've collected a substantial amount of data, usually 2 weeks or so, try and examine the following key statistics. These are the only 3 that I care about, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, you want to understand how many people are actually coming to your site. Unique visitors tracks unique sessions per visitor and is the only metric you'll need to pay attention to here. Secondly, you want to know how sticky your website is and whether people are coming back for more. New versus returning visitors is a great way to gauge how memorable your site is. Lastly, you want to know where your visits are coming from. This will help drive marketing efforts and understand which social platforms to focus your efforts on. Lastly, if your site is content heavy, you'll want to try and do a content audit. The best and most effective way you can keep track of all your content is to build a content inventory. Here's a really easy example of a content inventory built in Excel. You can use indentation to represent the site hierarchy and provide a link to each page. Now, for much larger sites, this can take maybe 4 or 5 days, but is the most effective way to get to grips with what you are dealing with. Okay, we've covered enough techniques to at least get your team talking about UX. Now we need to keep building our case to make proper, lasting change.